What if the only thing standing between you and the life you dream about is the way you think? Not your money, not your background, not your luck, just your mindset. There is a silent force shaping every decision you make, every opportunity you notice, and every risk you avoid. It wakes up with you in the morning. It speaks to you before you even leave your bed. It whispers things like, "This is too hard," "I'm not ready," "maybe later." And most people listen without ever questioning it. But here's the truth. Your life is not controlled by circumstances. It is controlled by interpretation. Two people can face the same obstacle, the same rejection, the same failure, and walk away with completely different futures. One sees proof that they should quit. The other sees data, feedback, and a reason to adjust. Mindset is the operating system of your life. If the system is outdated, even the best opportunities will crash. If the system is strong, even chaos becomes usable. Think about every breakthrough moment in human history. Every invention, every company, every transformation began as an idea inside someone's mind before it ever became reality. Reality is always built twice. First mentally, then physically. The most powerful shift you can make starting today is this. Stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can this teach me?" Because the moment curiosity replaces complaint, growth begins. Today is not about becoming someone else. It's about upgrading how you see yourself, your challenges, and your potential. And once that shift happens, everything else starts moving. Every person alive is living inside a story. Not the story others see, but the one running quietly in their own mind. The story that explains why they try, why they hesitate, why they believe something is possible or impossible. You may not notice it, but this story shapes your identity. Maybe your story says, "I've always struggled." Maybe it says, "I'm not the confident type." Maybe it whispers, "People like me don't succeed." And here's the dangerous part. The brain doesn't question repetition. It accepts it. Whatever you tell yourself often enough begins to feel like truth, even when it's only a perspective. But imagine for a moment that your story is not permanent. Imagine it's editable, upgradable, rewritable. Because it is. Your past may contain failures, mistakes, missed chances, and painful lessons. But your past is evidence, not destiny. It shows what happened, not what must happen next. The most transformative realization you can have is this: identity is not fixed. It's constructed daily through thoughts, actions, and interpretations. Confidence is not a personality trait you're born with. It's a memory bank of promises you kept to yourself. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's movement despite fear. So instead of asking whether your current story is comfortable, ask whether it is useful. Does it empower action? Does it create possibility? Does it encourage growth? If not, it's time to revise it. Today, start telling yourself a different narrative. One where setbacks are training. One where effort is investment. One where learning never stops. Because the story you repeat becomes the life you experience. And when you change the story, you begin changing the outcome. Most people fear failure not because it hurts, but because of what they think it means. They believe failure is a verdict, a label, a final confirmation that they are not capable. But failure has never been a verdict. It has always been information. Think about how a child learns to walk. There is no embarrassment when they fall, no internal narrative saying, "Maybe walking isn't for me." There is only repetition, adjustment, curiosity. Falling is simply part of the process. Somewhere along the journey into adulthood, that mindset changes. Mistakes become personal. Rejection becomes identity. And slowly, people stop attempting things that matter to them. But innovation, growth, and achievement have always required experimentation. And experimentation guarantees imperfect outcomes. Every attempt that doesn't work eliminates one path that does not lead forward. That's not loss, that's clarity. Imagine trying to build something meaningful while expecting perfection on the first attempt. The pressure alone would stop most people before they begin. Yet the greatest builders, creators, and problem solvers understand a powerful principle: progress is iterative. You try, you observe, you adjust, you try again. Failure is simply the cost of learning faster than others. What truly limits people is not failure itself. It's the emotional reaction to failure. The moment they interpret it as proof to stop, rather than data to refine. So the next time something doesn't work, pause before labeling it. Instead, ask, what did this teach me that success could not? Because success shows you what works once. Failure shows you what to improve forever. When you begin viewing failure as feedback instead of defeat, you remove the biggest barrier to action. And when action continues, growth becomes unavoidable. There is a place that feels safe, predictable, and familiar. A place where expectations are low, risks are minimal, and uncertainty rarely appears. It's comfortable there. And that's exactly why so many people stay. Comfort is not loud. It doesn't announce itself as a barrier. It disguises itself as patience, practicality, or timing. It says things like, I'll start when I'm ready, maybe next month, after things calm down. But readiness is often an illusion. Growth rarely happens when everything feels certain. It happens when you step into situations where outcomes are unclear, skills are incomplete, and confidence is still forming. Think about moments in your life when you grew the most. They were probably uncomfortable. A new environment, a new responsibility, a difficult conversation, a challenge that forced you to adapt. If comfort preserves who you are, discomfort expands who you can become. This doesn't mean you must constantly chase chaos. It means recognizing that meaningful progress requires occasional friction. Muscles grow through resistance. Minds grow through challenge. Character grows through pressure. The danger of prolonged comfort is stagnation disguised as stability. Days begin to repeat. Potential remains unused. Dreams slowly become ideas you once had rather than goals you pursue. So ask yourself a simple question. When was the last time I did something that stretched me? Not something reckless, but something intentional that required courage. Maybe it's learning a new skill, starting a project, sharing an idea, taking responsibility, asking for an opportunity. Small acts of bravery compound. The goal is not to eliminate fear. It's to prove to yourself that fear does not decide your direction. Because on the other side of comfort is capability you haven't discovered yet. And the moment you step beyond what feels familiar, your world begins to widen. People often imagine transformation as a dramatic moment, a sudden breakthrough, a massive leap, an overnight success story that changes everything at once. But real change rarely arrives like lightning. It arrives quietly, through repetition. Your life today is the result of thousands of small decisions made over time. The habits you kept, the habits you avoided, the actions you repeated without noticing. This means something incredibly powerful. If small actions built your current reality, small actions can also rebuild it. Discipline is often misunderstood as intensity. People think it requires extreme motivation, endless energy, or perfect consistency. But true discipline is much simpler. It is the commitment to show up, especially when motivation is absent. A single productive day will not change your life, but a productive pattern will. Imagine improving just a little every day, reading a few pages, practicing a skill, exercising briefly, planning tomorrow before sleeping. These actions may feel insignificant in isolation, but time amplifies consistency. Momentum is built through accumulation. And here's the secret. Small wins create emotional evidence. Each time you follow through on something you promised yourself, your self-trust increases. You begin to see yourself as someone who finishes, who persists, who moves forward. Confidence is built this way. not through affirmations alone, but through evidence created by action. So instead of asking, "How do I change my entire life?" ask, "What is one action today that my future self will thank me for?" Keep the bar realistic but non-negotiable. Because greatness is rarely a single decision. It is thousands of aligned decisions repeated quietly, while no one is watching. When you master the discipline of small daily wins, you stop waiting for motivation. You become someone who creates progress on demand. And that is where real transformation begins. You may believe your motivation comes purely from within, from willpower, determination, or personal drive. And while those things matter, there is another force working around you every day that quietly influences your behavior, your environment, the people you talk to, the content you consume, the conversations you hear, the physical space you live and work in. All of it leaves an imprint on your mindset. Imagine trying to stay optimistic in a space filled with constant negativity. Imagine trying to focus in an environment designed for distraction. Imagine trying to grow while surrounded by voices that doubt every ambition. It becomes exhausting. Human beings are adaptive. We absorb emotional tones, expectations, and beliefs from our surroundings more than we realize. This is why energy can feel contagious, because in many ways it is. But this realization is not limiting, it is empowering. Because if environment influences you, you can also influence your environment. You can choose what information enters your mind. You can organize your space to support focus. You can spend more time with people who inspire growth, curiosity, and possibility. You can reduce exposure to inputs that drain enthusiasm or reinforce limitation. Even small environmental changes can shift behavior dramatically. A cleaner workspace can improve clarity. A supportive conversation can reignite belief. An inspiring idea can trigger action. You don't need to control everything around you, only enough to create alignment with the person you're becoming. Think of your environment as fertile soil. Goals are seeds. Without supportive soil, even strong seeds struggle. With the right conditions, growth becomes natural. So today, observe what surrounds you, not with judgment, but with awareness. Ask yourself, does my environment support my direction? If not, begin adjusting it piece by piece. Because when your environment reinforces your intentions, progress requires less force. And your energy begins to work with you, not against you. One of the hardest things a person can do is believe in a future that does not yet exist, to work towards something invisible, to invest effort without immediate proof, to continue when results are delayed. Yet this is the exact space where transformation lives. Most people wait for evidence before belief. They want confidence before action, certainty before commitment, clarity before movement. But progress often requires reversing that order. Action comes first. Evidence comes later. Every meaningful pursuit begins with uncertainty. When you start learning a skill, you are not yet skilled. When you begin a project, success is not guaranteed. When you chase a goal, the outcome is unknown, and still movement must happen. Belief in this context is not blind optimism. It is a decision to trust that effort compounds, learning accumulates, and persistence increases probability. Think about planting a seed. If for days or weeks, nothing visible happens above the surface. But beneath the soil, roots are forming, structures are building, growth is preparing. If you judge progress only by what you could immediately see, you might assume nothing is happening. Your own journey often looks the same. There will be periods where improvement feels invisible, where results lag behind effort, where doubt quietly asks whether continuing is worth it. This is where courage matters most. Courage is continuing to invest energy into a possibility before it becomes reality. It is showing up for a version of yourself that others cannot yet see, sometimes even before you can fully see it. So if progress feels slow, remember, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Growth can be occurring beneath the surface. Keep building, keep practicing, keep refining, because eventually preparation meets opportunity. And when that moment arrives, what looked like sudden success will actually be accumulated belief finally becoming visible. Comparison is one of the fastest ways to drain motivation. It happens quietly, while scrolling, observing, listening, or measuring your progress against someone else's visible achievements. You see their success, their confidence, their results, but you rarely see their uncertainty, their learning curve, their setbacks, or the years of invisible effort that preceded the moment you are witnessing. And without realizing it, you begin comparing incomplete information. You compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. This creates a distorted perception of progress. It makes your own journey feel slower, smaller, or less meaningful, even when you are moving forward at the exact pace required for your growth. But life is not a synchronized race. There is no universal timeline that everyone must follow. People discover passions at different ages. Opportunities appear at different moments. Skills develop at different speeds. Circumstances vary widely. Your path is unique not because it is perfect, but because it is yours. If comparison becomes harmful, when it shifts your focus away from improvement toward inadequacy, instead of asking, "How can I grow?" you begin asking, "Why am I behind?" Growth thrives on curiosity. It struggles under self-judgment. If your more useful perspective is this, let others inspire you, but not define you. Their achievements can expand your sense of possibility without diminishing your own progress. Every expert was once a beginner. Every confident voice once felt uncertain. Every visible success once existed only as a private intention. So rather than measuring distance between you and others, measure distance between who you were yesterday and who you are today. Progress is personal. If you learned something new, practiced despite resistance, or took one step forward, that counts. Because the goal is not to outpace everyone else. The goal is to continuously outgrow your previous self. And when that becomes your metric, comparison loses its power. Fear is natural. It appears when we face uncertainty, risk, or change. It can whisper doubts, create hesitation, and even convince you that inaction is safer than progress. But here's the truth. Fear is not a stop sign. Fear is a signal. It points to the places where growth is waiting, where potential exists, and where transformation is possible. The most successful people do not live without fear. They feel it, they acknowledge it, and they act anyway. Action is the antidote to fear, not avoidance, not waiting, not wishful thinking. Think about a rocket launch. If the engineers know the risks, the team has prepared meticulously, and still uncertainty exists. But they ignite the engines anyway, because they understand that hesitation does not protect them. Execution does. Your life works the same way. The longer you wait for fear to disappear, the longer growth stays out of reach. Courage does not mean absence of fear. It means acting with fear, learning to trust your capacity to handle it. Start with one small, decisive step today. Send that message. Start that project. Speak your truth. Commit to a tiny action that aligns with your goals. The moment you act, fear loses its grip because momentum takes over. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence fuels persistence. Persistence builds skill. And skill transforms possibility into reality. Every action compounds, even if imperfect. Each step is evidence to your mind that you are capable. Fear can exist alongside action, but it cannot coexist with inactivity indefinitely. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until fear disappears. Move forward with intention, with discipline, and with courage, and you will discover that fear was never your enemy, but your guide. Because action transforms doubt into progress, hesitation into momentum, and uncertainty into growth. Fear is natural. It appears when we face uncertainty, risk, or change. It can whisper doubts, create hesitation, and even convince you that inaction is safer than progress. But here's the truth. Fear is not a stop sign. Fear is a signal. It points to the places where growth is waiting, where potential exists, where transformation is possible. The most successful people do not live without fear. They feel it, they acknowledge it, and they act anyway. Action is the antidote to fear, not avoidance, not waiting, not wishful thinking. Think about a rocket launch. If the engineers know the risks, the team has prepared meticulously, and still uncertainty exists. But they ignite the engines anyway, because they understand that hesitation does not protect them. Execution does. Your life works the same way. The longer you wait for fear to disappear, the longer growth stays out of reach. Courage does not mean absence of fear. It means acting with fear, learning to trust your capacity to handle it. Start with one small, decisive step today. Send that message. Start that project. Speak your truth. Commit to a tiny action that aligns with your goals. The moment you act, fear loses its grip because momentum takes over. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence fuels persistence. Persistence builds skill, and skill transforms possibility into reality. Every action compounds, even if imperfect. Each step is evidence to your mind that you are capable. Fear can exist alongside action, but it cannot coexist with inactivity indefinitely. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until fear disappears. Move forward with intention, with discipline, and with courage. And you will discover that fear was never your enemy, but your guide. Because action transforms doubt into progress, hesitation into momentum, and uncertainty into growth. There comes a moment in every life that does not look dramatic from the outside. No spotlight, no applause, no announcement. Just a quiet decision made internally. A decision that says, from this point forward, I will think differently, act differently, and expect more from myself. That moment is available to you right now. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need guarantees. The most powerful transformation begins with a decision to take ownership. Ownership of your thoughts, your reactions, your habits, and your direction. Throughout this journey, you've seen the pattern. Your story can be rewritten. Failure can become feedback. Comfort can be challenged. Small wins can compound. Environment can be shaped. Belief can exist before evidence. Comparison can be replaced with growth. Fear can be answered with action. All of these ideas lead to one central truth. Mindset precedes change. The way you interpret challenges determines whether you stop or continue. The way you see yourself determines what you attempt. The way you think determines what you build. So imagine waking up tomorrow with a new internal agreement. Not that life will be easy, but that you will be resilient. Not that obstacles will disappear, but that you will adapt. Not that doubt will never visit, but that it will never decide. This is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming intentional. Years from now, you may look back and realize that nothing extraordinary happened on this day, except a shift in perspective. And that shift quietly redirected everything.